Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Day number 8. Day number 8. State's case, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant Duff.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Lieutenant Duff.
Good morning.
All right. We were talking about Maggie's phone at the end of the evening last night, correct?
Yes, sir, we were.
Before we move on, I want to cover just a couple more quick things, and then we'll move on. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 283 again, and this was the detailed timeline for Maggie's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to flip to my apologies. Yes. Okay. Line 4529. Take a look at 4529, please. And I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. And we'll move it on. Can you read 4529 on the screen? Probably just excuse. It's at the bottom, very bottom. Okay, can you read that, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
And this is a log entry, correct?
Yes, sir. This appears to be a log entry from the data usage SQLite database.
Okay. And in the far right column there, what does that say?
In the far right column, as I look at it, it says com.apple.datausage.findmyiphone. And then it's got Wi-Fi in 0, Wi-Fi out 0.
Okay. And what time did that data entry occur on Maggie's phone?
That data usage entry occurred at 10:05:13 p.m.
Okay. And what does that tell you, in your opinion?
That in the background, Find My iPhone was using data on the phone.
Okay. Does this information or any information you've looked at in your investigation tell you exactly why the data be used at that time?
No, sir. It could have just been a background app that was running that had been open from previously in the day.
Could it have been that Find My iPhone being triggered from elsewhere?
It could have been.
Okay. But you can't tell for certain with in your opinion?
No, sir. I cannot tell if it was running in the background or if somebody was accessing it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And again, referencing Maggie's phone, one thing that we have not talked about yet is any location data or any location points from that night. Have we?
No, sir.
All right. And in fact, in your analysis of her phone, at least for the night in question, did you discover any precise GPS location points?
From which there are several different databases that location information would be from. From the cache database, I didn't find anything for that night. It looks like previously from the examination that she'd used a map to go to an appointment or to a location, and that information was obtained.
Okay, and that was from the afternoon, correct?
Yes, so that was from earlier in the day.
All right, but at least in terms of precise GPS location for that night, Your investigation didn't find any on her phone, correct?
No, sir.
And I'm going to show you, again, I'll put it up on the screen. This is in evidence, states 275. All right, and this is, we talked about this yesterday, but this is Maggie's location services, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And what did we talk about for the majority of apps we see on the screen? How are location settings set?
For the ones pictured on the screen, there's the majority of them are set to while using.
And so in your opinion, knowing that and knowing what you've investigated in her database, why don't we see a lot of location data on her phone for the night in question?
It could have been from those apps not being accessed. It whether running in the background from previous in the day, or not being cleared out, or not started at a particular time of that day.
So Maggie's phone was not continuously recording location information, correct?
Not from the apps. In the cache database it was.
But you don't have anything in that cache database, correct?
Not from that day, no, sir.
Because while she's out at Moselle, would she have been using her map to navigate?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So her phone was fairly well locked down when it came to location, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll move on. I'm going to show you, which has been marked for this has been marked as states 285. I'm going to ask you to take a look at this, please. And what is that item, sir?
This item is an Apple iPhone. It was submitted to me with a SIM card and a black case on it
When was it submitted to you?
in September of 2021.
And have you had an opportunity to examine that phone?
Yes, sir, I have.
And in your examination, were you able to determine who owns that phone?
Yes, sir. According to the account information I obtained from that phone, it belongs to Alex Murdaugh.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, at this time, State would move Exhibit 285 into evidence.
Submitted.
All right. I'm going to show you State's, what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 286. And you might need to open up the box to take a look at it. All right. And did you take a look at it? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. And what is that inside that box?
Inside this box is a portable solid-state external drive that I received and placed a copy of the Celebrite extraction from Alex Murdaugh's phone.
Okay. And so in your examination of Alex's phone, you did a extraction, correct?
Yes, sir, I did a full file system extraction.
Okay. Using what software?
I used GrayKey to collect the extraction. Then I processed it and decoded it through Celebrite Physical Analyzer and also Axiom by Magnet Forensics.
And you then placed a full copy of the Celebrite report on that hard drive, correct?
minus several things. Due to the fact that Mr. Murdaugh is an attorney, there was a privilege review done. So I was only able to put on there things that were not removed by our attorney for taint purposes.
All right. And SLED had an attorney who did a privilege review, correct?
Yes, sir, they did.
And several things were removed, several communications were removed, correct?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding they were removed for attorney-client privilege.
All right. And obviously, because you aren't part of the privilege review, you don't know exactly what was removed.
Correct.
However, when it comes to Alex's call log, did you consult with the SLED attorney to determine whether any items were removed from Alex's call log?
Correct. None of the calls were removed. It mainly consisted of text messaging, emails, things of that nature that would actually be the communication, not calls.
And at this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 286 in evidence.
No objection. Admitted without objection.
All right. And I'm going to show you Exhibit 287. Take a look at that, sir.
Okay.
You recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do. This is a copy of the Celebrite extraction from Alex Murdaugh's phone that just contained call logs. The date filter was placed on this report for May 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2021.
This time, state will move to enter Exhibit 287 into evidence.
No objection. So admitted without objection.
All right, let's take a look at Alex's call logs. Your Honor, I don't know if this defense has an objection, but state would have moved to place this under seal to protect phone numbers that might appear.
No objection.
All right. And if we could remove the screen to the audience, please.
Privacy of the phone numbers on there, it's under seal.
Okay. And I'm going to show this exhibit, and let's take a look at line 39. 39. Can you see that?
No, sir, I cannot.
All right. There we go. That should do it. All right. Can you see line 39?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. And what is that?
It appears to be a call that was received on 5/30/2021 at 5:25 p.m. and answered. Looks like a FaceTime call.
Okay. And that was on May 30th, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's look at line 38 and 37. What are those?
Line 38 and 37 are both calls. They show outgoing as far as the number that phone dialed to another number on June 4th 2021. The first one on line 38 is at 3:41:34 p.m. Shows not answered as a FaceTime call. And on line 37, the time on that call, the same individual was 4:35:56 p.m. It shows not answered as a FaceTime call.
Okay. Let's look at line 36. What is that?
Line 36 is a telephone call that was placed by this phone. It was outgoing is the direction. It was placed on June 7th, 2021 at 10:25:49 p.m. It shows not answered. It shows a FaceTime call.
Wait a minute. So we have a call from June 4th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then another call at 10:25. It's June 7th, the night of the murders, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you testified yesterday on Maggie's phone. You saw several incoming calls beginning at about 9:02, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And are those calls in this call log on Alex's phone?
No, sir, they are not.
Let's talk about data that's restored or retained on phones. And we talked a little about SQLite databases yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the SQLite databases, for the most part, tend to keep information for only certain periods of time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is a call log, a phone call log, that type of database?
It's a different style of database. It's not recording information as quickly as, say, orientation changes or GPS location stuff, because you don't place calls constantly every day, every 2 minutes or more. If you did, then you would see it get overwritten and taken out the older stuff as new stuff comes in. But people don't make calls that much. So for that reason, it lasts longer in there.
Okay. So the call log lasts longer than other types of information on a phone, correct?
Yes, sir. Typically it does, just because that's not used as often.
And as a call log builds up, it might eventually, old calls might eventually drop off, correct?
Yes, sir. Older calls will drop off.
All right. But that would be a pretty, with a phone's available memory, that would be a pretty long list before they started to drop off, correct?
Yes, sir.
And here we see just simply a gap. We see calls from May of 2021, and then there's a couple calls on June 4th of 2021, and then nothing until 10:25 p.m. the night of the murders, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Is that, can the database simply overwriting itself explain that gap?
A gap like that would indicate that it was actually removed from there.
Okay. So if a call were to fill up and start overwriting itself, it would overwrite the oldest items first, you just said, correct?
Yes, sir. It's a standard thing with databases like that. Usually the first in is going to be the first out.
Okay. And here we see older calls from May, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then a couple calls in June 4th, and then 10:25 p.m. we start to see calls again, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that gap, when you say removed a second ago, how can those calls be removed to create such a gap?
For a call to be removed, you can go in and very easily go to your call log if you chose to, and you can swipe it. If you move it to the left, that number, it'll pop up red on the right-hand side and say delete. And if you choose to delete that call, you could do that same way you could with text messaging, voicemails, other things that you have access to, user access to.
Is there any way, other than that, what you just described, that you're aware of, any process that could explain that gap in call records on Alex's phone?
No, sir.
So those calls were deleted, correct?
It would appear that way based off of looking at the reports and the examination of the phone.
And one last question about that. In the far right column of these calls, we see source FaceTime. What does that mean?
It was a FaceTime call using the iPhone versus dialing the number.
Okay. And when you pulled this report, if there were normal phone calls, would they have simply been left out? Is that possible?
I pulled it for all call logs, so it should have pulled any regular calls also, along with FaceTime.
Okay. And you got Alex's phone when? Again?
And I got it in September of 2021.
Okay. So that was a full 3 months after, approximately approximately a full 3 months after the murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
So can you testify today of when you think those calls were moved with any information?
No, sir, I cannot.
So at some point between when those calls were placed on the night of June 7th and when you got the phone in September, those calls disappeared off that phone, correct?
Those calls are not on the phone anymore. How it happened, I don't know.
Okay. Did you do anything in your investigation, in your extraction or analysis to potentially remove those calls?
No, sir, I did not.
All right, let's see. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 288. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir. This is a copy of a Celebrate extraction report that was done for messages from Alex Murdaugh's phone.
Okay. You prepared that report?
Yes, sir.
And that report is from the data contained on that hard drive from the full Celebrate report?
Yes, sir. Into evidence under seal. To protect phone numbers displayed on this.
Are you able to submit a redacted copy deleting the phone numbers at a later time for the record?
We could probably make that happen, Your Honor. It would probably take some manual work. But, I mean, you could do that, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed.
All right. I'm going to have you flip in this report, Lieutenant Zelliff. Previously, when we looked at Maggie's phone, you testified about a group text that occurred at approximately 8:31 p.m. that night, the night of June 7th.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have you flip to those texts. Alex was a part of that group text message, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And specifically, we're looking for the text that occurred at 8:31 p.m. that night.
Okay. I see it.
Okay, you see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm going to show on this the text that arrived on Alex's phone at 8:31 p.m. Can you see that on your screen, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. And this is the same text that we saw on Maggie's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that arrived at what time?
It shows it arrived on June 7th, 2021 at 8:31 p.m.
Okay. And we're not going to go through the same read the list of individuals, but these are the same individuals that were in the group text we saw on Maggie's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right. And quickly read this text again. What does it say?
I plan to go over to visit Dad tomorrow afternoon. Is anyone else planning to go?
All right. And what time, date and time, was that text read on Alex's phone?
It shows read June 8th, 2021 at 1:44:49 p.m.
So that's the next day?
Yes, sir.
All right. And we're going to go to the next text in this thread. Can you read that?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. Okay, this should be the correct one. Can you make that out?
Yes, sir, I can make out what the text says.
All right, and what time did this text arrive on Alex's phone?
The text arrives June 7th, 2021 at 8:31:47 p.m.
All right, and what's this text say again?
It says, I'm in court all week with an emoji.
All right, and that's the text from Lynn G.
Yes, sir.
And when was that text read?
It was read on June 8th, 2021 at 1:44:49 p.m.
Okay. So I'm going to go a little bit earlier in the day on those texts. The same text thread. All right. And what time, the text that you see on the screen, what time did it arrive on Alex's phone?
It arrived June 7th, 2021 at 4:48:23 p.m.
And just read the text for us again, or read the text for us, please.
It says room 632. Nurse says we can alternate visits with only one person in at a time.
And who sent that text?
It looks like John Marvin Murdaugh.
All right. And what time was that text read?
It shows read June 7th, 2021 at 5:10:32 p.m.
So that's within about 20 minutes. Is that roughly correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let's look at the next text in this same thread. What time did this text arrive on Alex's phone?
It arrived June 7th, 2021 at 4:48:48 p.m.
And what time was that text read?
It shows read June 7th, 2021 at 5:10:32 p.m.
So again, roughly about 20 minutes after it arrived on the phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to have you find this. But yesterday you testified on Maggie's phone about a text that was from Alex at approximately 9:08:58. And I believe the text said something to the nature of, I'm going to see M or something like that. Can you find that text in this report, please?
Yes, sir, I did. I've located the message.
All right. Let's see. Okay, and we see that text, and this was an outgoing text, correct, from Alex's phone?
Yes, sir. It shows the status is being sent.
All right, and what time was it sent?
It was sent on June 7th, 2021 at 9:08:58 p.m.
And read the text again.
It says, "Going to check on M, be right back."
And we'll go to the text just after that in this thread. And this was another sent text, correct?
Yes, sir. The status is showing as a sent text.
All right. And what time was this text sent?
It was sent on June 7th, 2021 at 9:47:23 p.m.
And what does the text say?
The text says, "Call me, babe."
I'm going to ask you to find a text that Alex sent. I believe the contact is called Rogan at approximately 10:24 p.m. Can you find that for us, please?
Yes, sir. Okay, I've located it.
All right. Okay. What time was this text sent?
This text shows us sent on June 7th, 2021 at 10:24:43 p.m.
All right, and this was sent to Rogan, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And what does the text say?
It says, "Call me."
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 289. I'm going to ask if you recognize this.
Yes, sir. This is a Celebrite report that I prepared with timeline events for Alex Murdaugh's phone. The date filter was set for just the day of June 7th, 2021.
All right. At this time, State would move to enter Exhibit 289 into evidence.
No objection.
And State would ask that Exhibit 289 be under seal because there's some phone numbers displayed for privacy reasons.
No objection.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 290. Do you recognize that document, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is that document?
This is a copy of the Magnet Forensics Axiom report that I prepared for Alex Murdaugh's phone to show health database steps and movement.
Okay. Exhibit 290 into evidence. Does not need to be under seal.
No objection, Your Honor.
Edit.
Okay. And we're going to start looking at these steps first, so the screen can show this. This is Exhibit 290, and it's not under seal. Let's take a look at Record 16 and Record 17. Can you see those? Let's adjust it a little bit. Can you see those on your screen, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. And Record 16, what does that indicate?
Record 16 indicates that the phone recorded 49 steps on June 7th, 2021, beginning time 6:02:51 p.m., ending time 6:07:33 p.m. the same day.
All right. And Record 17, what does that show?
Record 17 indicates that the phone recorded 173 steps on June 7th, 2021, beginning at 6:14:42 p.m. and ending at 6:23:46 p.m.
You testified yesterday about steps, correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall, in terms of our ability to rely on any of those steps, what you testified to?
Yes, sir.
And in your opinion, what is the reliability? What do these steps tell us? Excuse me.
It tells us that the phone recorded the steps. It's not 100% accurate as to that's how many steps were taken. It also will not tell where the start was, the stop was, as far as distances, anything like that. But it's not 100% accurate. It just says the phone recorded steps. It was in movement recording steps.
Okay. And generally, for a phone to record steps, what does that tell you? How does a phone, what kinds of motion can cause a phone to record steps?
Possibly somebody was holding it in their hand, somebody had it in their pocket, but they were moving, they were actually in motion. They were either walking, could be running, it would record the steps, but somebody's got the phone in movement versus putting it in your cup holder of your car and driving around. It's not going to record steps that way.
Okay. So in your opinion, if someone puts the phone in a car seat or in a cup holder and they drive, will the phone record steps?
No, it will not.
Let's look at Record 18 and 19. Let me adjust it a little bit here. There we go. Well, you can make out Record 18 at the top, correct?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. And what does that show?
It shows that the phone recorded 57 steps taken on June 7th, 2021 at 6:42:12 p.m. beginning time, ending time 6:43:55 p.m.
Record 19, what does that show?
Record 19 shows that the phone recorded 283 steps beginning at June 7th, 2021 at 6:52:27 p.m. and ending at 7:02:05 p.m.
Let's look at Record 20. What does that show?
It shows the phone recorded 165 steps. Start time is June 7th, 2021 at 7:03:55 p.m. with an ending time of 7:11:29 p.m.
Let's go to Record 21. What does that say?
It shows that the phone recorded 200 steps. Start time is June 7th, 2021 at 7:15:35 p.m. Ending time of 7:21:52 p.m.
All right, Record 22. What does that say?
Record 22 shows that the phone recorded 47 steps. Start time is June 7th, 2021 at 7:28:35 p.m. Ending time 7:37:11 p.m.
All right, record 23.
Record 23 shows the phone recorded 270 steps. Start time is June 7th, 2021 at 7:55:32 p.m. Ending time is 8:05:07 p.m.
Record 24, and it's cut off to the next page, but read what you can, and then I'll flip it.
The beginning of this record shows that the phone recorded 29 steps with a start time of June 7th, 2021 at 7:41:23 p.m.
All right, and let's finish record 24 there. When did those steps end?
Those steps ended for that record on June 7th, 2021 at 7:48:41 p.m.
All right, so this report, like the report we looked at yesterday for Maggie, that it's chronologically a little bit out of order, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
The times that you're stating, those are correct.
Yes, sir. Those are
And
accurate.
just because the steps here that were recorded at 7:48, according to your analysis, that's when those steps occurred, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the fact that it's listed in your report after steps that had occurred later doesn't mean those steps occurred later. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's look at record 25. What does that say?
Record 25 shows that the phone recorded 74 steps. Start time of June 7th, 2021 at 8:05:35 p.m. Ending time of 8:09:52 p.m.
Okay. All right. Record 26. What does that say?
Record 26 shows the phone recorded 283 steps with a start time of June 7th, 2021, 9:02:18 p.m. Ending time 9:06:47 p.m.
Okay. So, and I'll hand this report back to you, but we see an hour gap, approximately an hour gap between those steps that ended at 8:09 and when the steps start to occur again at 9:02, correct?
Correct.
And I'll hand you a report so you can flip through it because some of the things got out of order. Just to verify, do you see any steps that occur on that phone between those two times, between 8:09 and 9:02?
No, sir, I do not.
And whose phone are we talking about again?
This phone was Alex Murdaugh's phone.
So, in your opinion, was this phone being moved around with or walked around with during that gap in time, according to the record or the analysis you've done?
No, sir, not in my opinion, based off my analysis.
All right, and I've previously entered States Exhibit 289, which was the timeline for Alex's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And let's talk about this timeline a little bit. So, what kind of information is found in this timeline on Alex's phone?
On this phone, it captured things like incoming text messages to show a log entry for it. It shows there's a log entry for images, steps. It's a little bit different the way Celebrite does steps versus Axiom, so it's a little bit different look to it. It also has text messages on here as they came in, and a few more log entries to show that text messages and that phone calls were being made and recorded in the log.
Do you see any orientation changes like we talked about on Maggie's phone in that report? Would it include it if there were?
Usually you don't see it in a timeline report like this. You would find it in the device events report. We would pull it separate.
Oh, have you, in your analysis, you've looked at the device events report, correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
And during that same time frame, do you see any orientation movement or anything to suggest the phone's being handled, or does that data exist?
Which time frame exactly?
The device events, did you find data from the night of the murder on Alex's phone?
Earlier in the evening, I did, but there was a gap in time where I did not see it.
Okay. Well, we talked about some of these databases kind of going away after a certain period of time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know the exact time for every single database, correct?
Correct.
But generally speaking, most of these databases, the SQLite databases, how quickly do they turn over?
They can go from 2 days to 2 weeks to 45 days. It just depends.
Okay. And so when you performed your analysis on this phone, it was in September 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so some of that information that's contained in those SQLite databases, would you expect to find it, some of that data in September that had been originally recorded in June of 2021?
No, sir. And if it showed anything, it wouldn't be accurate information. It would be remnants of it.
Okay. Because a lot of those databases overturn in a far shorter period of time between June and September, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And so, to sum up, Alex's phone, because you didn't analyze it until September, just simply doesn't contain as detailed data that you found on Maggie's phone, for example.
Correct, for that time frame of June.
For the time frame. Okay, and I'm going to show you, this is Exhibit 289, and this is under seal. All right, and we see lines 157 and 158 in this report, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is line 157 associated with?
Line 157 is associated with a text message.
All right, and that's a text message we just talked about in Alex's text message report, correct?
Yes, sir, it shows as an incoming text message.
All right, and I believe you just testified that that text wasn't read until the next day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there was a second text at and this is line 159, and there was a second text that you've already testified about. And what time was this text?
It shows that it was June 7th, 2021 at 8:31:47 p.m.
And again, according to the text message report, when was this text read?
The next day, on June 8th, 2021.
You just testified about the steps, and we can get the report back to you if you need to be refreshed. What time did Alex's phone start moving after that gap between 8:05 and 9:02?
It started moving at 9:02 after there was that gap before, but it started at 9:02 recording steps again.
And those texts were not read at that time, correct?
Correct.
And we looked at a couple earlier texts in that thread, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And those texts have been read within 20 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir, approximately.
And in your analysis investigation, did you review other texts that might or might not be in that report that's in evidence to review Alex's habit of when he read text?
Yes, sir, I reviewed other texts.
All right, from the day of the murder?
From that day and previous days and days after.
And just in your general review, and I'm sure there's outliers, but what is Alex's general habit when he reads text?
Usually it could vary from anywhere from reading it within 5 minutes to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, just depending. But it was generally within an hour's time it appeared that the texts were read.
And like I said, there's probably outliers, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. But this particular thread we've been talking about with the group family thread, what was the topic they were talking about?
It was about his father being in the hospital.
Okay. And those texts weren't read till the next day, correct?
Correct.
All right. I am going to show you what's been marked for ID purposes. Item 274. Give me a second to find it. All right. And you recognize that item, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And what is that item?
This is an Apple iPhone that we received. Once the analysis was done, it has the account of Paul Murdaugh.
Okay. And when did you originally get that item? Receive that item?
I would have to refer to my notes for the actual day it was submitted.
Do you have them with you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you look at that, please?
Yes, sir. All right. It was August 13th, 2021.
Okay. And to the best of your recollection, where had the phone been previous to you?
Previous to us, it was located in Charleston County in their evidence area.
All right. And that was Paul McManigal, correct?
Yes, sir. It has his sticker on there that it was in his possession.
And to your knowledge, was he able to access Paul's phone?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe he might have gotten a little just surface information from it, but to my knowledge, he was not able to access it due to the passcode.
All right. The phone was locked, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you got it in August of 21, was the phone still locked?
Yes, sir, it was.
And in August of 2021, did you have any tools available at SLED that would help you unlock that phone?
At that time, no, sir, it would not support that model and that iOS that was running on the system.
And these companies that develop software to access these phones, that software continuously updated, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that software isn't free, correct?
Correct.
And it's sort of like a game, isn't it? Apple, these companies discover an exploit on these phones that allow them to access it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then Apple produces a software update that fixes that exploit, correct?
Correct.
And so it's kind of a continuous cycle of being able to access these phones and not, correct?
Yes, sir,
But
correct.
in August of 2021, you did not have the ability to access Paul's phone, correct?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. Let's fast forward to March of 2022. Did it come to your attention that a fellow law enforcement agency had recently acquired a tool that could potentially access Paul's phone?
Yes, sir. I spoke with John Van Houten of the United States Secret Service, and they believe they had the capabilities with the tools they had to obtain the passcode to this phone.
All right. And did you take that phone to Mr. Van Houten?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. And Approximately when was that again?
It was in March of 2022.
All right. And to your knowledge, was Mr. Van Houten successful in accessing Paul's phone?
Yes, sir. I received a phone call from Mr. Van Houten stating he was able to do an extraction on the phone and that we were preparing it to put on an external hard drive for me to bring back and do my analysis.
All right. And you received what type of file extraction from Mr. Van Houten?
It was a Celebrite file extraction.
All right. Well, do you recall if it was a full file extraction or a physical file extraction or logical?
It was a full file system extraction.
And when you got that full file system extraction from Mr. Van Houten, what did you do with it?
I processed it with Celebrite Physical Analyzer and also verified the information with Axiom by Magnet Forensics.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to enter Exhibit 274 into evidence.
Submitted.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's pre-marked as Exhibit 292, states 292, and you probably need to open a box. All right, you recognize that.
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
This is an external hard drive. It's a portable solid-state drive that was provided to me to place the phone reports on for Paul Murdaugh's phone.
All right, and what does it contain?
It contains the Celebrite report for Paul Murdaugh's phone.
And that's a full Cellbrite report?
Yes, sir.
This time, state will move to enter Exhibit 292 in evidence.
Remove the previous objection.
And you're entering the entire download?
Correct.
Or entire extraction?
The full Cellbrite report from the phone.
And your objection is to the chain, not to the what's contained in it. Is that right? Okay, it's submitted.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to hand you what's Exhibit 293. Take a look at it. Let us know if you recognize it.
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is that?
It appears to be my Celebrite report that I prepared for call logs from Paul Murdaugh's phone with a date filter set for June 5th, 2021 to June 7th, 2021.
Okay. At this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 293 in evidence.
Same objection.
And this would need to be under seal, Your Honor, due to phone numbers and private information.
All right, you can substitute a redacted copy.
All right, and we're going to publish this, so this will be under seal. And I'm going to direct you to phone calls that occurred on the night of June 7th. And let's look at lines 5 and 6. Where do you see this?
Lines 5 and 6 show a phone call that was received June 7th, 2021 at 8:32:10 p.m. It was rejected.
Okay. That call was not answered, correct?
Correct. It shows as incoming and rejected.
And we see a name. What is that name?
Robert Boyle.
And then that's line 5, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is line 6 of the name?
It says Lucille Boyle.
Okay. And we encountered this with Maggie's phone. We have 2 different contacts because it's pulling from 2 different databases, correct?
Correct.
All right. And that number may be labeled as a different name in two different databases, correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's look above that, so lines 3 and 4. And what is that? What do those lines indicate?
Those lines show that the phone had an outgoing call that was placed June 7th, 2021 at 8:40:20 p.m. and it was answered.
Okay. And who's the contact name on that outgoing call?
Rogan Gibson.
And this is Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, this is Paul's phone.
And this is data that was stored on Paul's phone that you recovered in your investigation, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And that's an outgoing call to Rogan Gibson.
Yes, sir.
And how long did that call last?
It recorded that call as 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay. And we see actually between line 3 and 4 a slight difference in that time. I believe line 4 says 4 minutes and 18 seconds. But your testimony, looking at this data, the correct length of the call is what?
It's 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Let's look above that to lines 1 and 2. What do we see there?
Lines 1 and 2 show an outgoing call on June 7th, 2021 at 8:44:34 p.m.
Okay. And what is that? Who is that call to?
That call shows to Rogan Gibson.
All right. And we see a source. What is that source for this call?
It is a FaceTime call.
And how long did that call last?
Approximately 11 seconds.
And that was answered, correct?
Yes, sir. It shows as answered.
All right. And so if that call started at 8:44:34 and it lasted 11 seconds, when did that call end?
It would have ended at 8:44:45.
All right. And I see this is record number 1, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is the most recent call on Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there ever any other outgoing calls made from Paul's phone?
No, sir, not that I found.
Were there ever any other calls that were answered, incoming calls that were answered on Paul's phone?
No, sir.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 294.
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
This is a Cellbrite report that I pulled for text messages from Paul Murdaugh's phone.
At this time, State will move to enter Exhibit 294 into evidence.
No objection.
And this State would ask that this be under seal. It will display phone call or phone numbers, and to protect privacy, the State would ask that it be placed under seal.
No objection.
That copy be submitted along with the original.
Okay. And this is under seal, and I'm going to publish it. All right. I'm going to direct your attention to excuse me, that's line 3. Line 3. What does this entry say?
It's a text message that was received on this phone June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:39 p.m. Shows us an incoming text message.
All right. And who's it from, the contact name?
It's from Megan Kimbrell.
And what does the text message say?
It says, "Don't like watching sad movies."
Okay. And this was an incoming message to Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Does it indicate that this message was read?
Yes, sir. It shows as read June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
And actually, let's look at line 4, which was just below line 3, excuse me. All right. Can you see line 4?
Yes, sir, I can.
And what does this line, this entry indicate?
It indicates it's another text message that was received from the same sender, Megan Kimbrell.
Okay. And what does the text message say?
It says, "No, I need something happy."
All right. And this, what's the time on this text?
It shows the text is being received June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:29 p.m.
And what time? What's this text message read?
Yes. Yes, sir. It shows it's being read June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
All right. And so lines 3 and 4, we put them both there. They were read at the same time, correct?
Yes, sir.
What time was that again?
It was 8:48:59 p.m.
On the night of June 7th, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right, let's take a look at line 2. What does this record indicate, sir?
This indicates that a text message was received to this phone on June 7th, 2021 at 8:49:35 p.m.
Okay, so this is approximately how many seconds after those texts from Megan Kimbrell were read? We can flip back if we need to.
Yes, sir, if you could, please.
What time were the texts from Megan Kimbrell read?
At 8:48:59 p.m.
And that text from Rogan arrived at what time?
It arrived at 8:49:35 p.m.
I'm going to put you on the spot again. Can you give us a rough, or how many seconds between those two texts arriving on Paul's phone?
I would have to write that down if I tried to
Do you
word
have
the
a pen,
seconds.
something you could write with?
Yes, sir.
So the first time for Megan was 8. The texts from Megan were read at 8:48:59. And Rogan's text arrives at 8:49:35.
Approximately 36 seconds.
What is this text from Rogan ever read on Paul's phone?
No, sir. It shows the status is unread.
Ever.
Ever.
So when you got this phone download from Van Outen, that indicated that this text from Rogan was never read, correct?
Correct.
8:49:35.
Correct.
36 seconds earlier, there were two texts from Megan Kimbrell that were read, correct?
Correct.
And we see one final text above that in line 1, what does line 1 indicate, sir?
Line 1 shows that it was an incoming text message from Rogan Gibson on 6/7/2021 at 9:58:35 p.m.
All right, and what does that text say?
Yo, Y-O.
Was that text ever read?
No, sir. The status is unread.
All right, and I'm going to dig back into your memory from yesterday, from Maggie's phone. Do you recall a text on Maggie's phone that was read at 8:49:27?
Yes, sir.
And I believe that was a text from Lynn G. in the group text thread, correct?
Correct.
All right, why don't you write that number down? 8:49:27. All right, and that was a text from Lynn G. to the group thread about Randolph's health that was read at 8:49:27, correct?
Correct.
All right, and then we have here, line 2, a text from Rogan that was at 8:49:35, correct?
Correct.
How much time separates those two texts?
Approximately 8 seconds.
And that text from Rogan was never read, correct?
Correct.
In your investigation, you look at the status of the phone of when certain things occur, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Things like battery status, correct?
Correct.
And at the time of these texts, what was Rogan's battery status? Do you recall?
Rogan's battery status or
excuse me,
Paul's?
I'm sorry, Paul's.
Paul's battery state at that point was approximately 2%.
Okay, so that's a low battery state, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was it when those texts from Megan arrived on his phone?
It would have been between 2 and 3%.
Okay. And in your opinion, is there any reason that low battery state would have permitted Paul to read the text from Megan, but not from Rogan 36 seconds later?
No, sir.
And if he had read that text at 8:49:35, in your opinion, would the phone have logged that and recorded that event?
Yes, sir. It should have recorded it as a read status.
And that battery would not have prevented that phone from recording that text being read, correct?
Correct.
And in your investigation, we know you just testified Paul's phone was at 2% at approximately 8:49, correct?
Correct.
Did your investigation reveal that that phone logged when that battery finally died on Paul's phone?
Yes, sir. At approximately 10:34 p.m. on June 7th.
Which is, roughly speaking, about how long after those texts arrived on Paul's phone?
Approximately 39 minutes for the last one.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure this needs to be an expert opinion, but if a phone that is at 2% is used heavily, how long approximately would you expect that phone to last before it dies?
If it's being used heavily, text messaging, looking at videos, things of that nature that are going to put more strain on the battery, I would expect it to go to the point of being dead. I would imagine, and just kind of ballparking because I haven't done testing on this, but I would say 10 to 15 minutes max.
So a matter of minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. But that phone sits there for, would you say, about almost 39 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Actually, I'm sorry. Let's do that math again. If Paul's battery state at 8:49 is 2%, and it dies at 10:34, again, how many minutes is that approximately?
36. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I missubtracted.
And I think we're both suffering from some math phobia here, Lieutenant Dove. We're going to do that one more time. And we can write this down if we need to. And, you know, us lawyers, we don't do math, so. 849, the battery is at 2%, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the phone dies at what time?
From the last text message or from?
What time does Paul's, just write down the time, what time does Paul's phone die?
At 10:34
All right.
p.m.
And how much time is between approximately?
From the last text messaging received from Rogan? 8:49, I'm sorry. I was going off the last time a message was received to the phone.
That's probably my fault.
At an hour and 35 minutes.
All right. Okay, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 295.
Okay.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir. This is a copy of the Celebrate report I prepared for a timeline from Paul Murdaugh's phone.
Okay. And I noticed this is quite a bit thicker than some of the other reports that we've been through, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Why would that be?
That one also contains location information that was obtained from the cache SQLite database.
So there's a lot more data points on Alex's phone, correct?
There's a lot more on Paul's phone on that timeline.
Paul's phone, excuse me. At this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 295 into evidence.
Renew the previous objection.
It's admitted.
And just what time frame again does that report stand?
The time frame of this report, I began it at 6 p.m. on June 7th, 2021, and it ran through midnight on June 7th, 2021.
And just roughly speaking, if you were to print even 2 or 3 days worth of this information on Paul's phone, how many pages would you expect that report to be?
Several thousands of pages.
All right. And so this is just a couple hours.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Your Honor, there are some phone numbers contained on this report, so the state would move that it be sealed for privacy reasons.
No objection.
Okay.
All right, and I'm just going to pull some examples here. And I'm looking at lines 325 through 329. What's the date range that you see there?
Beginning with 325, it's June 7th, 2021, 6:44:47 p.m. Going to line 329 is going to be June 7th, 2021 at 6:46 p.m.
So that's approximately 2 minutes of log entries, correct?
Yes, sir, a little bit less than 2 minutes.
Lines 325 and 326 and 327, what kind of entries are those?
325, 326, and 327 are location data entries into the cached SQLite database.
Okay. And we see some numbers at the top there. I see a 32.83 and some other numbers, and a minus 81.05, some other numbers. What do those numbers indicate?
They are latitude and longitude numbers.
Now, and we see 3 entries within almost seconds, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what does that tell you, generally speaking, about Paul's phone and his settings on whether his phone will record location data frequently or not?
It's recording it much more frequently, and every few seconds it's grabbing this information to this database.
Okay. And so is Paul's phone as locked down as Maggie's in comparison in regards to location?
It appears that it's collecting more data as far as location information than Maggie's phone did.
All right. And then I'm going to direct your attention to line 328 there. And what is that entry?
This is an entry from an application usage that shows it was in there, and I believe this application's related to Snapchat.
All right. And what does it actually say there?
It actually says com.toyopagroup.picaboo.
Dot Picaboo?
Yes.
And you researched what that means?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you've discovered what?
That it's related to Snapchat.
Snapchat usage?
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break now. If you go to the jury room, a break for about 10 minutes or so.
Please be seated.
You may bring the jury. You may proceed.
I'm going to circle back to what's already been admitted to States 294. And this is the text message report that you produced, sir?
Yes, sir.
And this is under seal. And we're just going to flesh out a little bit that text conversation with Megan and Kimbrell. Just for a little more context. Lines 10 and 11. Can you tell us what's indicated on those two records?
Yes, sir. On line 10, it shows that it was.
Actually, I'm sorry, let me stop you. Let's read line 11 just to keep it chronologically in order. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Line 11.
Line 11 shows that it was an incoming text message on June 7th, 2021 at 8:29:06 p.m. And the message says, "You didn't send me any movie recommendations."
And the contact associated with that incoming text?
It's from Maggie and Paul.
Okay. And when was that text read?
It shows that it's being read on June 7th, 2021 at 8:29:17 p.m.
Okay. Within about 11 seconds of it arriving on Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let's look at the line above that, line 10.
Line 10 shows it as an outgoing text message from Paul Murdaugh to Megan Kimbrell that on June 7th, 2021 at 8:29:36.
Okay. And what does that text say?
It says, "Haha, I didn't have a good one."
And again, that's to Megan Kimbrell from Paul, correct?
Yes, sir.
Paul's
Correct.
phone. All right. Let's look at lines 9 and 8. All right. What does line 8 indicate?
Line
Excuse me,
8.
I'm sorry, line 9. Line 9.
Line 9 indicates that it was a text message sent from Paul Murdaugh's phone to Megan Kimbrell on June 7th, 2021 at 8:29:48 p.m. And it says, "Wills may."
Will's what? I'm sorry?
Wills might.
And that was now going to text, correct?
Yes.
All right. And in line 8, what does that indicate?
Line 8 shows it as an incoming text message from Megan Kimbrell on June 7th, 2021 at 8:30:10 p.m. and it says, "OMG."
All right. And that was an incoming text from Megan Kimbrell?
Yes.
And when was it read on Paul's phone?
It shows it is being read June 7th, 2021 at 8:13 p.m.
And just so the jury understands the context, those are text messages in the same conversation that they heard about from Megan Kimbrell, correct?
Yes, sir.
And just to refresh, so the circle's complete, let's look at lines 5 and 6 again. In line 6, is that a text that was sent or outgoing to Megan Kimbrell?
It shows it as an outgoing or sent text message.
All right. And what does that message say again?
It says, ha ha, kidding.
All right. And then line 5, what does that indicate?
Line 5 shows it as an outgoing or sent text message with a body or the text message saying, Star was born is the move.
Okay. And that was at 8:48:05?
Yes, sir.
And that was an outgoing text from Paul, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, well, we talked about these texts, but real quickly already, at line 4, at 8:49:29, is that an incoming text?
At 8:48:29, it's an incoming text message
From who?
from Megan Kimbrell.
All right. And that says again?
No, I need something happy.
All right. And then line 3, is that an outgoing or incoming text?
That is an incoming text message.
From who?
It's from Megan Kimbrell.
And what does that say again?
It says, don't like watching sad movies.
All right. And so those are both incoming texts. And when were those texts read again?
They were read on June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
Okay. And so going back to line 5, just so it's clear, in your investigation, is this the last outgoing text from Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's at 8:48:05, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A moment ago, we were discussing State's Exhibit 295, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is a timeline report from Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that thick, how many hours again does that cover in Paul's timeline for the night of the murder?
I set the timeline parameters beginning at 6 p.m. on June 7th, 2021 to end at midnight on June 7th, 2021, but the timeline stopped short of that.
Okay. What time does the timeline stop?
The timeline stops at 10:34:23 p.m.
Okay. And I think you previously testified about that time. What does that 10:34 p.m. Indicate to you? What happened at that time?
There was a power event. The phone had gone dead and turned off.
And I'm going to show that. That's line 901. And that's the final log entry from June 7th, 2021, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And you testified. What is your interpretation of that log entry?
When I looked at that, it was a power event where the phone had gone dead and been turned off because the battery life ran out.
And can you tell us can you tell for certain whether the phone was simply turned off or did the battery die?
It appears from what I looked at the battery died.
Okay. And that's line what again?
That is line 901.
All right. And so that means in this particular report, there's over 900 log entries, correct?
Correct, in just this report, yes,
Okay.
sir.
And we're not going to go through it line by line. But I'm going to hand this back to you. I'm going to ask you some questions. And we previously discussed a lot of what is contained in this report is location data. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you personally take all those lat longs and plot them somewhere?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. But you provided that location data to other law enforcement agents or agencies, correct?
Correct.
And specifically, to your knowledge, has it been provided to the FBI?
Yes, sir, it was provided to the FBI to do some mapping with the location data.
Okay. And do you recall who in the FBI did that?
I believe it was Agent Wild.
Okay. All right. But let's make some general observation on what you see in that timeline. We see a lot of location data. Take a few moments to look through that timeline and just in an overall picture, what is that phone being generally used for? What is being done on that phone in a general impression?
It appears that on this phone, based off of this timeline, that there are calls being made, text messaging being done, Snapchats being utilized, social media type things with Snapchat, and the text messaging and calls.
And when you look at that usage, would you say it's sporadic or almost continuous?
It's a lot of continuous usage. Like I said, I pulled it from 6 p.m. and it ends at 10:34. So in the matter of about 4.5 hours, it's over 900 entries on here.
Okay. I'm going to direct you to time about 8:44, and you can take a moment to find it. 8:44 p.m. And I want to see if you can find, I believe there's an entry for the camera. And it's a little after 8:44, but in some change in seconds.
Yes, sir, I see it.
And what's the exact time on that that you see?
It says 8:44:49 p.m. on June 7th, 2021.
Actually, so what does that camera, we'll show this in a moment. What does that entry indicate to you?
That the camera was being utilized. There was an application usage, so the camera was being utilized, or beginning to be utilized at that
The
point.
camera was turned on?
Yes.
Okay. And I want you to look at the next page, or maybe the page after, and see if you can find a corresponding log entry that would show that the camera was turned off.
Yes, the camera shows it was turned off at 8:47 p.m. on June 7th, 2021.
Okay. Let's show this to the jury if you will. And I believe what you're referencing, can you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
And that is line 820. Do you see that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And we see a 8:44:49, and that's a start time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we see the camera turn on, correct?
It shows the camera with the application usage log shows camera. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then below that, at line 822, we see some location data. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I know you didn't plot every point on this report. Did you plot that particular point?
Yes, sir.
And where was that location?
It was located near a red roofed building on the property on Moselle Road.
Okay. And why don't you write that time down again? It was, I'm sorry, at line 820, just write that time, 8:44:49. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's look at line 828. What do you see there, sir?
That shows the end time for the camera at 8:45:47 p.m.
Okay, write that time down. I think you know what's coming.
Yes, sir.
How long was that camera on?
That camera went, 1 second, let me carry that.
Take it up.
It went for less than a minute,
Okay.
about 50 seconds roughly.
Okay. I'm going to hand this report back to you. just going to have you again look through it and see if you can form an opinion. Starting at, remember the text series we just went through with Meg and Kimbrell, and flipping that report to basically at 849.
All right, I have it.
All right. So starting with the outgoing text to Megan, or excuse me, with the red text from Megan, which were read at 8, I believe, 48:59. Why don't you go ahead and review the rest of that report? And I want you to tell this jury whether you see anything in that report that would indicate to you that that phone is being actively used by a human being.
No, sir, I do not.
And you previously testified that Paul's battery was at 2% at approximately 8:49 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
But you testified that the battery actually didn't die until 10:34, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Almost a little over an hour and a half later, correct?
Yes, sir.
And would that indicate to you, in your opinion, that that phone did anything except for some potential minor movements than just sit in a single location that entire time?
Correct. I see no other movement on there, recorded steps or applications being used, such as social media.
Which brings me to this. We'll show you State's Exhibit 296. Let's see if you recognize that, sir.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. All right, and what is that?
This is an Axiom report that I prepared from Magnet Forensics, recording the health database for Paul's phone.
And at this time, State is moved to enter Exhibit 296.
Remove the previous objection, Your Honor.
This will not be under seal, Your Honor.
Can I see it?
Yes, sir.
Admitted of objection.
All right. And, let's look at a few of these. Okay, I'm going to show you record 43 and 44. Do you see those, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. And what do those two records indicate? Let's try to keep it chronological. So start with 43.
43 shows that the phone recorded 105 steps. Starting time was June 7th, 2021 at 6:54:21 p.m. Ending time is 7:03:49 p.m.
All right. And record 44, what does that indicate?
Record 44 shows that the phone recorded 208 steps. Start time of June 7th, 2021 at 7:14:13 p.m. Ending at 7:22:19 p.m.
All right, record 45, what does that indicate?
Record 45 shows steps recorded on the phone of 139 starting June 7th, 2021 at 7:25:03 p.m. and ending at 7:34:47 p.m.
Record 46, what does that indicate?
Record 46 shows the phone recorded steps of 171 beginning June 7th, 2021 at 7:35:10 p.m. and ending at 7:41:43 p.m.
All right, record 47, what does that indicate?
Record 47 shows steps recorded on the phone of 89 beginning June 7th, 2021 at 7:45:27 p.m. and ending at 7:55:11 p.m.
All right, can you see record 48?
Yes, sir. It says steps were recorded on the phone of 140. Start time is June 7th, 2021 at 8:15:55 p.m. and ending at 8:21:45 p.m.
Okay. Record 49, what does that say?
Record 49 indicates that 283 steps were recorded by the phone beginning June 7th, 2021 at 8:32:25 p.m. and ending at 8:42:11 p.m.
All right. All right, and there's a couple entries after this, but chronologically, I'm going to have you review this. They occurred prior to 8:42, correct?
Yes, sir, they do.
All right. And we'll show those to the jury real quick. All right, record 50 and 51, what times did those steps occur at? Excuse me.
Record 50, the time started was June 7th, 2021 at 8:05:46 p.m. and ending at 8:15:24 p.m. Record 51 shows starting time of June 7th, 2021 at 7:55:44 p.m. and ending at 8:05:28 p.m.
So, chronologically speaking, those two events occurred prior to record 49, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
We'll go back to record 49. I'm going to hand the report back to you. As you testified, those steps ended at 8:42 and 11 p.m., correct? Record 49.
Yes, sir, correct. They ended at 8:42:11 p.m.
All right, and I'll give you a moment to review your report if you'd like. Did any other steps recorded on Paul's phone after 8:42:11 p.m.?
No, sir, I did not see any that were out of order.
So after 8:42:11 p.m., did Paul's phone move it to any significant degree, in your opinion? Or was it walked anywhere to any significant degree, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I did not see any steps recorded on the phone, so it was not in motion or somebody moving it or holding it and moving.
Now, you testified that the steps aren't necessarily 100% accurate, correct?
Correct.
So is it possible the phone moved a short distance during that time, correct?
Correct.
And a few steps may or may not have been recorded if the phone had been moved after 8:42:11, correct?
Correct. It's possible.
But in your opinion, was that phone walked anywhere any significant amount of distance?
No, sir, I did not see any recordings of that.
And it's tough to quantify significant, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
And I'm not going to ask you to give us a precise number, because do you know a precise number?
No, sir, I do not.
But in your opinion, can that phone move a short distance and not record steps?
Yes, sir, since it's not 100% accurate, you may have one or two steps that don't get recorded. Usually if it's a large amount of steps, if you're 15, 20, 30 steps, it's going to record that.
Okay. All right. We're getting to the end here, so one quick thing I want to go back and cover. Let's talk about Maggie's phone real quick. And you previously testified that you saw that orientation change on Maggie's phone between 9:06. It starts at 9:06:12 p.m. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And it ends at 9:06:20 p.m. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that indicated, you previously testified, that someone had that phone in their hands during that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
However, you also testified that there is one other possibility that could explain how a orientation change could record on a phone, correct?
Yes, sir. If it fell like down steps or something like that, it was on.
Okay. And you also, I believe, testified that if a phone tumbles end over end in some way, that could potentially record orientation change, correct?
Yes, sir. If the phone's on and
Don't leave the witness.
If a phone falls and tumbles end over end, could it potentially record an orientation change?
if the phone is on and unlocked, it can record the orientation change.
If the phone is thrown and tumbles end over end, could it record an orientation change?
It would be hard to do if it's off. If the screen display is off and it's not unlocked, it would be hard to record that.
In theory, it is possible.
In theory, I'm sure it's possible, yes, sir.
And in your opinion, is that likely?
Usually when phones, if you're holding a phone, you take your phone, unless you move it, if you take your phone and it's sideways and you lay it down on the table, it's not going to record an orientation change. If it's in portrait mode and you set it straight down and don't turn it over the end, it's not going to record the change. But it is possible.
In your opinion, if someone throws a phone with no other manipulation, could it be thrown a short distance without recording an orientation change?
Yes.
All right. Now, one thing we haven't talked about with Maggie and Alex's phone is one other review you've done of these phones is those phones have a lot of photographs and videos on them, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And you've reviewed, I don't know if you've reviewed them all, but have you reviewed a substantial portion of them?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you find anything on Maggie or Alex's phone that was relevant to the investigation on, at least on June 7th of 2021?
Yes, sir, I did.
On Maggie or Alex's phone?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not on Maggie or Alex's phone.
Okay. At least in relation to the events of that night, was there anything recorded on Maggie or Alex's phone that was relevant that you found?
As far as video recordings or photograph recordings, no.
Okay. All right. Paul's phone, did you conduct a similar review?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you find anything that you consider relevant to what occurred on the night of June 7th at Moselle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And in fact, we've already referenced it, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
When we looked at Paul's timeline, we saw an entry of Paul's camera coming on, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think you wrote the time down, but if you can't find it, we can get the report out again. But what time did that camera come on?
At 8:44:49.
Okay. And how long was that video again?
It was roughly 50 seconds.
And when did that video end?
At 8:45:47.
And you're certain about that?
Yes, sir.
Why are you certain about that?
Because I reviewed the video for looking at the length of the video. It compared it to the length of the camera time that was on. Also, too, there was data recorded in the video because it was taken with the phone. that had GPS coordinates along with a description of the phone that took it.
Okay. And you're telling this jury today that you're certain that that is when that video was recorded on Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
And as we referenced when we were looking at that timeline, there's location data associated with that video as well, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right. And where did you plot that location data?
It plotted to Moselle Road to near a building that had a red roof on it.
Okay. I want to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 297. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. What is that?
It is a CD that contains a video. On it, it says Kennel Video, has States 297 on there, along with my initials and the date of 1/30/23.
And have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is the contents of that CD?
It is a video I found on Paul Murdaugh's phone. The video looks like inside maybe a kennel area with a fence around it and a dog, I believe to be a lab, where he's trying to take a video of the tail of the dog.
Okay. All right. And that's what you see in that video.
Yes, sir.
What do you hear in the video?
You hear 3 different voices in the video. You can tell because they're so different, you can tell that they're different voices.
All right. Now, are any of those voices known personally to you?
No, sir, they are not.
Okay. This time, State would move to enter Exhibit 297 into evidence.
Previous objection, Your Honor.
Submitted over objection.
All right. And at this time, the State's going to publish that video. It is not under seal.
Get up. Get up. Quick, Cash. Come on. Quick. It's okay. Come here. Come here. Shit. What's the Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bottle.
It's a guinea.
There's a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quick.
What time was that video recorded again, Lieutenant Dove?
The camera begins at 8:44:49 p.m.
And ends when?
at 8:45:47 p.m.
Nothing further from the State.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Lieutenant Dove. My name is Philip Barber. I represent Mr. Murdaugh.
Good morning.
I'd like to get to a timeline as soon as possible, but first I want to go over just a few things we've been talking about. We talked about reading text messages when they're sent and when they're read.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to see the contents of a text message without it being marked read?
Yes, sir, it is.
And how would that be?
If you have a notification on your phone on the lock screen that would show a text message, depending on how long the text message is, you could see the text message and read most of the content without actually opening it and reading the message.
And we talked about the battery on Paul's phone. It was down to 2% when that last text message was marked as read. Is that correct?
It was in that time frame, yes, sir.
And is it reasonable that someone whose battery is down to 2% might curtail their use of the phone?
It is possible, yes, sir.
We've talked a lot about orientation changes, and I think there was some discussion right before we saw that video about orientation changes, and I think we should go into some detail about exactly what that means. So, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 38. And do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do. It appears to be part of the Knowledge Seed database with some tables changed up because it's so large to make it more readable.
A Knowledge Seed database for whose phone?
At the top it says Maggie Murdaugh's phone.
And you talked about the Knowledge Seed database a little bit yesterday, but maybe just to refresh, what is that? Knowledge
Seed database is a rather good-sized database. It records a lot of information inside your phone. It can be orientation changes. It can be whether a phone's plugged in to a wall, to a car. It can record such things as applications, if they're launched sometimes in there. It's a variety of things. It can record battery. It's part of the power log too, where it'll record the battery usage as far as the percents.
Your Honor, at this time, a defendant would offer Exhibit 38 into evidence.
Says stated.
No objection.
It's admitted without objection.
And please publish to the jury. And can we go to the last page? And sir, if you please turn to the last page.
Yes, sir.
This is not a list of everything in Knowledge Seed, correct?
Correct.
This is just showing orientation changes.
Correct.
And is this showing all the orientation changes in this database in Maggie Murdaugh's phone?
For the time frame that it's set up, as far as June 3rd, 2021, it ends on June 7th, 2021.
You know if Maggie Murdaugh's phone had any orientation changes in the Knowledge Seed database before June 3rd?
Nothing that I remember seeing.
If we turn to the very last orientation change, do you see that it has date recorded 9:06 and 22 seconds?
Yes, sir, I do.
And that's on June 7th.
Yes, sir, it is.
Is that the last orientation change before the phone was recovered by law enforcement the next day?
According to what I looked at, that's the last one I saw.
And where was the phone recovered?
I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't at the scene. I know it was not recovered near the kennel area, but exactly where, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure.
I mean, are you aware that it was recovered from the side of the road into the woods about 15 feet?
I've heard that, but like I said, I was not on scene, so I can't say 100% I was there to see it.
What I want to ask about here is we have 3 different dates and times for this one orientation change, and I just want to understand what each one means. So the first one, date recorded, which is at 9:06 and 22 seconds, what does that mean?
That's when it recorded the orientation change.
So would that mean that that's when this line was written in the database?
Yes, sir.
So the start time for an orientation change, what does that mean?
It's when it started to record that the orientation change was happening.
Okay, and then I see the end time would be when it ended 8 seconds later, right?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean for an orientation change to take 8 seconds?
That it was in that position.
So is it taking 8 seconds to go from portrait to landscape?
No, sir. It's recording that it was in that. It did not show that it changed. If it's in portrait, it didn't show that it changed from portrait to landscape or from landscape to portrait. It shows it was in that position for that period of time.
Okay. So, and then over here, this number, there's numbers that are 0 and 1. 0 would be landscape and 1 would be portrait, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
So we have here, this is the last orientation change before it's recovered, and we have a start time and an end time of 12 seconds to 20 seconds.
Yes, sir.
And do you recall that there was an incoming phone call in that time period?
Yes, sir. There were incoming phone calls around the 9:04, 9:05, I think at 9:08 also, or a text message around then.
Do you recall that there was a phone call between 9:06 and 12 seconds and 9:06 and 20 seconds?
Yes, sir, I believe there was.
And who was that call from?
It was from Alex Murdaugh.
So during the period of this orientation change, there's an incoming call from Alex Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And so during this period, the screen is on, correct?
The screen would light up once the call's made, yes, sir.
And it's ringing, correct?
I'm assuming it would be yes, sir.
Okay. We'll come back to that when we try to flesh out a little bit of a timeline. The next thing I wanted to ask you about I will show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 41. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir. This is another table from the Knowledge C database.
It's actually, isn't it the same table, sir?
Well, it's part of the same table. It's actually the other one contained the orientation. This one contains apps.
And this one contains, well, let me ask this. When you, under stream name, do you see Siri UI?
Yes, sir, I do.
And do you understand what that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Murdaugh would offer Defendant's Exhibit 41 into evidence, Your Honor.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Published. So this looks similar, and we see that it says Siri, and there's things that say begin and end. What does UI mean?
It stands for user interface.
And so we see here the user interface is starting and stopping at these various times. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what on Maggie's phone, what would typically trigger the Siri user interface?
It could be several different things. If it's set up with Siri where there's a word that you say, you know, Siri or whatever you choose to say, it could activate it when it's listening. It could be hit the button, the power button to activate it. It could be several different things.
And hitting the button, is the button on the side of the phone?
Yes, sir.
If that's pressed and held for a couple of seconds, it comes on?
Yes, sir.
And I want to turn, do you know who a man named Al Johnson is in relation to this case?
Yes, sir, I do.
And who is he?
He is a private investigator that does digital forensics, retired from the FBI.
And did he do work on this case?
Yes, sir, I believe he did.
Did he do analyses of the phones in this case?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen those analyses?
I've not seen his completed reports, no, sir.
Okay. Have you seen his Axiom reports?
I have not seen all his Axiom reports, no, sir.
Let me ask this. When you looked at the steps and the time periods for the steps on Maggie's phone, Paul's phone, well, let's just talk about Maggie's phone and Alex's phone. Did the steps after 9 o'clock, say, did they ever go together? Were there steps happening on Alex's phone at the same time as Maggie's phone?
I would have to look at the two reports because I looked at them singly, so I would have to put them together to compare them.
Okay, well, let's find them.
This morning.
284 and 290?
284 and 290.
And mark this date's 284. It is 284. And what's been admitted is date's 290. And sir, just to understand the question, is there anything indicating that Maggie's phone and Alex's phone were moving together in those reports?
Let me look to see, compare the times. No, sir, it doesn't appear so.
Okay. If the same person had had both phones on them and one of the phones was recording a significant number of steps, would you expect to see the same number of steps or something very similar on the other phone?
I would expect to see steps on both phones, yes, sir.
And you would expect to see those steps over about the same time period?
Yes, sir, give or take a minute or two for entry in the database.
And then you would roughly expect to see the same number of steps on each phone?
Yes, sir, within a few.
Are you familiar with a timeline prepared by a special agent, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Rudovsky, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you assist with the preparation of that timeline?
I reviewed it early on. I have not reviewed anything in the last week or two on it.
Well, let me ask about that. Early on, but not within the last week or two, that the case has been investigated, since 21. So were you assisting with that until a couple of weeks ago?
He provided me copies of it previously when it was in a working draft copy, just to verify that he was interpreting the information from my reports onto it correctly.
And now turning to Alex Murdaugh's vehicle, it was a Chevy Suburban, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you do any work regarding the electronics in that vehicle?
No, sir.
You had no involvement in anything with that vehicle?
As far as processing the data, no, sir. I just took the items that were seized from the vehicle, as far as the infotainment center, and prepared them and sent them to the FBI to be processed.
Have you ever seen any of the results from the FBI processing?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. So now I want to turn and start going through some of the text messages on Maggie's phone. We will. Maybe a little hard to read, sir, but do you recognize what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 54?
It appears to be a report for iMessages, SMS, and MMS messages.
And is this a report you prepared?
No, sir, I don't recognize this report.
Are you certain about that, sir? This was produced in the extractions. This is the Axiom report with bookmarked.
Yes, sir, but I did not prepare it like this.
It's a web page on the computer, correct, sir?
Yes, sir, it's an HTML page.
And then this is just a printout of that.
It says print this page at top, so I would assume that it is, yes, sir.
Sir, can you read under source, say on the third entry?
On the third entry of source? Yes, sir.
Do you see where it says CCRED and then it says Red Network Local and then slash and root and Dove, your name? Do you recognize any of that?
Yes, sir. That's the file path for our evidence server where this item, the extractions contained.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Defendant's Exhibit 54 into evidence.
No objection.
It's admitted.
So this is, please publish. And could we zoom in so that the left side of the screen is a little larger? Zoom in so the left side of the screen is larger and visible to the jury. That's good. Now, Lieutenant Dove, the times in the time column here are UTC, so we'll need to subtract 4 hours from them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and this is a listing of text messages that Maggie Murdaugh sent or received?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So the second entry there, what's the time for that message?
The time it shows the message sent time is June 7th, 2021. It shows it at 7:55:26 p.m., but to correct it to Eastern Standard Time at that point would be 3:55:26 p.m. That's with -4 UTC.
Okay, and is this incoming or outgoing message?
This records it as a message that was sent.
And does this message say, well, can you read the message?
It says, "TY, I'm waiting at doctor. Alex wants me to come home. I have to leave door open at Edisto, but trust Mexicans to shut and lock for me. His dad is back in hospital. The last doctor claims no cancer, it's pneumonia."
Okay, and does this continue on to 3? Well, let's just continue. Could you read number 3?
Yes, it's hard to tell where it separates on this report, but there's 2 emojis, and it says, "Alex is about to die. Hope he doesn't go down there to sleep. Alex needs to take care of himself as well."
And what was the time on that one?
That text message was June 7th, 2021. It shows it at 7:57:16 p.m. To correct to UTC -4 would be 3:57:16 p.m.
And then if we come down to number 5, that's an incoming message from Mr. Murdaugh, isn't it? That we looked at before.
Yes, sir.
And what does it say?
It says, "How's your doctor appointment?" or APPT.
And if we go to the second page, and number 6 there, is that an outgoing message?
It shows it as a received and read message.
Okay. And what does it say?
It says, "Yes, he does. He told me he was tired when he left. I hope they can treat Mr. Randolph at least to make him comfortable."
Now, the next one, number 7, is that a reply to the "How was your doctor visit" message?
Yes, sir, it appears so.
And what does it say?
"Waiting as usual."
And number 8, is that an outgoing message?
It is a sent message, yes, sir.
And what does it say?
It says, "I'm scared for him and Alex and all of us."
In the context of these text messages, do you understand that to be referring to Mr. Randolph Murdaugh's medical condition?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what's the time on that?
That time is June 7th, 2021. It shows at 8:06:43 p.m. To correct it to -4 UTC would be at 4:06:43 p.m.
Okay. And number 9, what does that, is that incoming or outgoing?
It shows it as a received and read text message.
Okay. And what does this text message say?
It says, "I know, just pray about it and hope he gets a little better. Alex and you really need to relax. Always being on the go with little to no sleep is not healthy. Remember that I have a doctor's appointment in the morning in Beaufort. If I get done early, I will go to Moselle. I'll let you know."
Okay, let's skip down to page 4, which I believe will be our next message from Mr. Murdaugh. And we're looking at number 18. Is this an incoming message from Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes, Your Honor. We're having a little difficulty seeing this. If they could blow it up just a little bit. Just a little smaller, please.
Can't see the small print.
If we could make the message text in particular with the date. Yeah. ask the court to please ask the jury if they can now see everything.
Is there anyone who cannot see?
Thank you, Your
Proceed.
Honor. Line 18, who is this text message from?
The text message, it shows the client or the chat ID is 1-803-942-1227.
Is that Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
And what is the time of this message?
The time of this message is June 7th, 2021, 11:05:55 p.m. To correct to minus UTC is going to be 7:05:55 p.m.
And what does the message say?
Paul says you were getting petty. Call when you get done.
And there are 2 exclamation marks after petty, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Showing some, and petty, you would understand here to mean pedicure?
Yes, sir. To the best of my knowledge, it is.
Now, number 20 would be the next text message from Mr. Murdaugh, and what is the time on that?
The time on that, on the paper, it's June 8th, 2021 at 1:08:58 a.m. To correct the time to minus 4 UTC would make the day June 7th, 2021 at approximately 9 o'clock, 9:08:58 p.m.
And what does this one say?
Going to check on M, be right back.
And then finally, number 21, I'll just ask, is this at 9:47 and 23 seconds p.m.?
Yes, sir, once it's corrected for the UTC.
And what does this say?
It says, call me, babe.
And who is it from?
It's from the same phone number of 1-803-942-1227, and that phone number is for Alex Murdaugh.
Ask about that 908 text message, because I think the state talked about that a bit. Let me ask this. Do you know when that text message was actually displayed on Maggie Murdaugh's phone?
I would have to check the report to see if it actually shows the display time or when it recorded in the log. But I believe it was the 9:08 mark.
Come back to that. Let's talk now a bit about the timeline from about 8:50 p.m. to 9:08. Right, very narrow and get into some real detail on it. And if I could have an easel. I'm going to ask about some times, and you may need to refer to the reports. If so, let me know, and I'll bring them up.
Yes, sir.
And I'm really talking, well, let's first just talk about Paul's phone. We established that it locked at 8:49 and 1 second. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it did not unlock again.
Correct.
And it was at 2% battery.
Yes, sir.
So we don't really know much about what happened after that time from his phone, do we?
Just what was recorded in the logs.
Was anything recorded in the logs after 8:49 and 1 second.
Yes, sir. It's still showing that there was some activity going on as far as like GPS coordinates, things of that matter.
When was the last activity?
I would-
Well, let me rephrase that. When was the last activity indicating human use of the phone?
Was the time that it was locked.
Okay, and so we don't know what the person with the phone was doing after that. We can't tell from the phone, can we?
I can't tell if a person was using the phone. It doesn't appear so, but the phone, because it was still on, was still running things in the background.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk a lot about Maggie's phone. So on Maggie's phone, was the display off from 8:49 and 28 seconds to 8:53 and 8 seconds?
That sounds right. I'd have to verify it with the report to be 100%.
Okay, do you have the report on hand?
No, sir, I don't.
I just handed you what's been marked, it's been admitted as stage 283, which is the timeline report for her phone.
Yes, sir.
So is that correct, that time period for display off?
Could you repeat the time so that I can verify it, please?
Okay, it is 8:49 and 28 seconds is the display goes off. Is that correct?
Give me 1 second to get to it. 8:49 and 28 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so it shows that that's the end time of the display on.
Is there an orientation change at that time, too?
It shows an orientation change at 8:49, 28 seconds, goes to the landscape. So there is the same time.
And 2 seconds later, is the phone locked?
It said 8:49, 31 p.m. It shows the start time of being locked.
Okay. Our next event at 8:53:08, does the display come back on?
Yes, sir, it does.
The phone is still locked, but the screen is on, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's what it's showing.
And is there an orientation change at 8:53 and 12? 4 seconds after the screen came on.
Yes, sir, it goes to portrait.
And we have in this, kind of starting at this time period, starting at 8:53:15, with Apple Health, don't we have her walking some distance?
Yes, sir, I believe so. I believe it recorded some steps then. I would have to refer to that report.
Please do.
Yes, sir. It starts at 8:53:15 p.m., recording 59 steps, and ends at 8:55:32.
Do you have any way to know the distance that covered?
No, sir. It just says it recorded 59 steps, and then it shows on there a duration in minutes, which is approximately 2.29.
Is the distance, is it on the phone? Is it available to be found?
As far as distance, as far as in yards or
Meters.
I have seen it in meters, yes, sir.
So that information has been recovered, how many meters those steps covered?
Yes, sir. When we extracted the information, it would have been part of that.
And was that 31 1/4 meters?
I would have to look at, it's not on this report, on the Axiom report, it doesn't put it down in meters, it just does it in feet. I would have to look at one of the other reports or look at the extraction to know exactly how many meters it is, but it does record in meters.
And at the end of that walking period, or about 4 seconds before, when does the screen turn off next?
I show a display off at 8:53:28 is the start time of that. And then the next display off is at 8:53:44 p.m.
Well, let's stick with the 8:53:28, it went off, correct?
Yes, so that shows the start time of it being off.
And did it come back on 4 seconds after that?
Yes, sir. It comes on at 8:53:32 p.m.
Now, the exhibit I previously showed you about Siri. When's the last activation of the user interface for Siri?
The last one shows that it started on June 7th, 2021 at 8:53:20 p.m.
Okay, so it's during this period of walking.
Yes, sir.
And we covered previously that holding the side button can trigger that.
It's one of the things, yes, sir, that could trigger that.
Now, the screen had gone off at 8:54:32. Is that correct?
At 8:54:32 was the end time of the display off.
I apologize. 8:53:44 it came on, correct? The display went off, and then it went back on at 8:55:04. Is that correct?
Let's see. I show display off starts at 8:53:44. It ends at 8:55:32. Display on at 8:55:32 is when it starts with the display on. And then it shows that ending at 8:55:04.
So at 8:55:32, the display comes on, and 2 seconds later is a camera application used.
At 8:55:32?
At 8:54:32, the screen comes on.
Yes, sir.
2 seconds later, the camera is activated. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was the camera activated from the lock screen? In other words, the phone was not unlocked to get to the camera.
It doesn't appear that there's an unlock sequence, but I would imagine not, just based off of that I don't see the unlocking.
Is there metadata in the Knowledge C database that would allow you to determine whether this was activated from the lock screen?
There may be. I've never looked that far into it to see if that's there.
So the screen comes on, the camera's activated. It stays on for how long?
It comes on at 8:54:34 and goes off at 8:54:35, so approximately 1 second.
Okay. And we're still in that walking period, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, 5 seconds later, we have an orientation change.
The orientation change to landscape begins at 8:54:40. Yes, sir, approximately 5 seconds.
So in a space of 6 seconds, correct that, 8 seconds, screen came on, camera opened, closed, and then orientation change. So a lot happened in that 8 seconds.
I don't know that the camera came on. I know that it was showed an application usage log. Whether somebody activated the camera to use it or not, I don't know that.
And then when did the display go on?
It shows display off at 8:55:04 p.m.
Okay. And there was an orientation change then too, correct?
Yes, sir. It went to portrait.
And did the display come on again shortly thereafter, 28 seconds later?
Yes, sir. At 8:55:32 p.m.
And then it went off and it stayed off until 9:03, correct?
Let me find the end time for that display off. Yes, sir. The display went off at 9:03:52 p.m.
So, and then what we would have after that would be some incoming calls that go unanswered until we get to that orientation change at 9:06. Is there anything else happening on the phone?
There's other things that are recorded in the logs, because it will record in the logs that it received a phone call. So you get that, you get the phone calls in there.
And
It
the phone
shows,
call, when was that?
it shows a phone call at 9:04:23 p.m.
And I think we had previous testimony that that was from Alex Murdaugh, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And then we have the final orientation change at 9:06 and 12, which has a start time of 9:06 and 12 and an end time of 9:06 and 20, correct?
Yes, sir. That's when your orientation changes to portrait.
And in that time period, we have another call from Alex Murdaugh, correct?
Yes, sir, at 9:06:14 p.m.
And then another one coming in at 9:06:51. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And then the display after that goes off.
Yes, sir. It goes off at 9:07:00 p.m.
And that text message we talked about earlier at 9:08:58, did the screen come on when that came in? Or did it stay off?
It looks like when the display off ended was at 9:31:44 p.m.
Is that when that text message was actually delivered?
It shows text message received on the phone at 9:08:58 p.m.
But the screen did not come on until 9:31.
Correct.
We mentioned the who had seen the vehicle. Well, let's strike that. We talked about Alex Murdaugh's steps. Did he have a period of walking that went from about 9:02 to 9:06 and 47 seconds?
I would have to refer to that report. I'm sorry, could you give me the times on that again?
It's about 9:02 time period. It ends at 9:06 and 47 seconds.
Yes, sir. It shows that the phone recorded 283 steps.
Do you recall from the report you got from the FBI about his vehicle, if anything was recorded happening on his vehicle at 9:06 and 48 seconds?
I don't remember. I remember looking at the report, but I haven't studied that report, so I don't know.
You don't recall that the report shows that the car engine was started at that time?
I would have to look at that report. Like I said, I looked at the report when it first came back, but I have not studied that report because that was not part of what I examined.
Was information from that report included in the timeline you assisted Agent Dolsky with?
Yes, I believe it was.
If you were to look at that timeline that the agent prepared, would that help refresh your memory?
Yes, sir. I could look at it and see what their report says.
It's a copy of his timeline report. You recognize that that's what it is?
Yes, sir. That's what it appears to be. Are you wanting me to look for the vehicle
Yes, please,
information on it?
Yes.
Object, Your Honor. This is what's going to be a state's exhibit. The state does not object if we just go ahead and admit it as a defense exhibit at this point. But I don't know if what Mr. Barber's intention is.
Your Honor, I was using this to refresh the witness's recollection.
What is the
612.
What is the objection?
If he's going to review that, the state would ask that it be marked and admitted. As this is not a report personally prepared by Lieutenant Dove.
Would you like to have it admitted as a state's exhibit or defense exhibit?
I'm happy to admit it as a defense exhibit, Your Honor. It's not pre-marked, however.
Yeah, admit it as a defense exhibit.
You need to mark it before. Okay.
I don't know what you.
That's 60.
I'm handing you back what's now been marked as defense exhibit 60, which will make this a lot quicker and easier. Did you find what we were talking about?
Yes, sir, I did.
And when did Mr. Murdaugh's car start?
According to this timeline that's been prepared, it looks like it starts at 9:06:48 p.m.
And that is a second after the end of that period of walking around.
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to describe that period of walking around as Mr. Murdaugh walking to his car?
I can just say the phone recorded steps. I can say what this report has as far as the vehicle information. Now, whether somebody was walking to their car, from their car, or just walking around an area, I can't say because I wasn't there. But I can just say what the information contained on there.
Did his phone connect to the Bluetooth system in his car?
I did not find connections during that time frame.
Did you look at his car? I apologize. Did the FBI find a connection to the system in his car, not on his phone?
I don't see it in this section that talks about the vehicle stuff for the 906 period.
Come back to that in a second. If a phone were thrown from the window of a moving car going down a country road, would you expect, and the screen was on at that time because there's an incoming call, would you expect to see an orientation change?
Depends on how it was thrown, but if it was just thrown end over end, then I would expect the orientation change.
Okay. And this phone was recovered on the side of the road. You're aware of that?
Yes, sir.
About 15 feet. We've had testimony about that in some brush on the side of a country road. Not so far from Mr. Murdaugh's house, but a half mile or so at least. If that would make an orientation change, and that was the last orientation change ever on the phone until it's recovered is 9:06 and 12 seconds, 9:06 and 20 seconds, is it reasonable to believe that is it being thrown out the window to its final resting place before it is recovered?
It's hard for me to say. I can just testify about what the information's on the phone. If it's somebody throws, there's different way to throw things. You can throw things end over end, straight. You can throw it sideways. You can take and toss something is considered a throw. It's hard for me to say that because depending on how it's thrown, what it hits when it tumbles or to the ground or how it lands could cause different things to happen.
Based on the information in front of you, would it be possible for the person who's cranking that car at 9:06 and 48 seconds to be throwing it from that car while it's moving at 9:06 and 12 to 20 seconds?
Anything's possible. I
If
don't
the person
know.
driving were Alex Murdaugh because he's having to walk for a few minutes before he gets in the car, right?
I don't know how he throws things, how he handles things, so it'd be hard for me to say how they would do that.
So what I'm asking is if he walked from 9:02 until the second before he gets in the car and cranks it, and that is, it looks like 30 seconds after the phone is thrown on the side of the road a half mile away, can he be in two places at once?
I don't know that's the time the phone was thrown. I know that's the time the orientation change occurred. Now, that does not mean that the phone was thrown at that moment. It's hard for me to say.
Certainly. It is possible that it was a random orientation change and somebody throws the phone out of the moving car going down this country road, lands in some brush 15 feet off the road by some miracle golf frisbee shot. But you would expect you throw the phone out the window like that, you get an orientation change if the screen is on.
If it's thrown like you described, with it being thrown like a golf frisbee kind of throw, I don't expect the orientation change because it can land flat.
So, but that would be unusual, wouldn't it? That you could throw it from a moving car, it could land 15 feet in the woods and not ever bounce, not once, in a way that would cause an orientation change.
I've never tested throwing a phone out the window to see what the orientation change looks like. Like I said, I can just testify to what is in the records on it.
And at the time, if this is when it's thrown, at that very moment, there's an incoming call from Alex Murdaugh. The screen's lit up with his name on it. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it would be reasonable that if somebody had taken the phone, they see it starts to ring with his name on it, they might chuck it out the window.
It is possible if they see that, yes, sir.
That would be consistent with all the information on the cell phones, would it not?
It's consistent, the information on the cell phones, whether somebody who saw the number coming in or they even saw the number coming in, I can't say because I was not there.
I understand. You were not there. And the question is really, your review of these records, is that not just consistent, but reasonably consistent, something that would make sense to you, that is one reasonable possibility consistent with what you see on these phones?
If somebody was holding the phone and they saw a number come in, they didn't want to answer or didn't want, then to throw it, that is a possibility, yes, sir.
And that the last orientation change before law enforcement finds it in the woods on the side of the road the next day recorded when it was tossed out the window?
I can't say that. I can
But that
just
would be
say that
reasonable.
I can just say there's an orientation change. I cannot say that's when the phone was thrown that caused that change to portrait.
And at the time, and at less than 30 seconds after that, Alex Murdaugh, well, at that time, he's walking, isn't he? He's not in a car.
The phone recorded steps in the time frame.
And you have testified on direct that if you're riding in a car, it's not going to record steps.
Correct.
So he's not in a car at that time.
I can't say where he was or what, and I wasn't there. I can just say what the phone recorded, whether it recorded
And that's
steps
fair.
or not.
The person in possession of his phone was not in a car at that time, 9:06 and 12 seconds.
I can just say the phone, that somebody had the phone and it recorded steps.
Right. And you also would have testified that if you're in a car, it would not record steps.
Correct. If you put it in a cup holder and ride around in a car, it's not going to record the steps.
So if this phone were in a car at 9:06 and 12 seconds, it would not record any steps.
Correct.
And it did, in fact, did not record steps at that time.
At what time it ended, that's the time, the last ones I see with the steps on that time
I
frame.
mean, it did record steps at that time.
Yes, sir.
So the person who had Alex Murdaugh's phone was walking at this 9:06 and 12 seconds time because it's recording steps.
Yes, sir. Somebody was holding the phone and recording
And
steps.
he's also calling his wife in this time period.
Yes, sir. There are phone calls.
He's walking and calling his wife, and his car is about to crank a second after he stops walking, which really does seem like he's getting into a car.
That's what it would appear with the times, but like I said, all I can testify to is what the information is on the devices.
Did Alex Murdaugh have the code to unlock Maggie Murdaugh's phone?
I don't know. I've been told he did. I was provided the code when I received the phone.
So, you don't really have any, you can't really testify as to why he would take his wife's phone, I guess the state alleges, and throw it out the window of his car half a mile from his house.
No, sir. I have no idea why people are thinking or do things they do.
And we've previously established that his phone and Maggie's phone were not, when he's walking, they're not walking together. Is that correct?
Correct. There are no steps recorded on the devices together.
So he's walking without her phone does an orientation change while he's walking without her phone. Is that correct?
I can just say both devices were not recording steps at the same time.
And they're not recording steps at the same time, and he's walking at 9:06:12.
Correct.
Therefore, hers is not recording steps at 9:06:12.
Correct.
So his phone is walking, hers is not. At the time, her phone has this final orientation change before it's found on the side of the road.
Yes, sir.
And in your 20-some years experience in law enforcement, that doesn't make it seem reasonable to you that he did not, that the person who had Alex's phone did not also have Maggie's phone at 9:06:12?
It appears the phones were not together being moved by the same person because they were not recording steps.
I'm going to switch off of timeline a little bit and ask, were you aware of a Celebrite logical extraction of Alex's phone that was conducted on June 10th?
I have been told there was one conducted, yes, sir.
Did you ever receive that?
I received a copy of it several months back.
Well, did you receive it after you did the full file extraction?
Yes, sir.
So there was really not, it wasn't very useful to you at that point, was it?
No, sir. I was working off of my extraction because I was able to obtain the full file system, which gives me more information than an advanced logical would do.
Turn to Maggie's phone and the recovery of that. You testified earlier. Is it your understanding it was recovered in the afternoon of the day after June 8th?
My understanding is it was recovered June 8th. The approximate time it was recovered or time frame, I'm not 100% sure of.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 42.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize this form?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is it?
It is our evidence intake form for the Computer Crime Center.
Okay. Your Honor, Mr. Murdaugh would offer this as Defendant's Exhibit 42 into evidence.
No objection.
It's admitted without objection.
Is this the intake form for Maggie Murdaugh's phone?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Could we please publish Exhibit 42? While they do that, what's the date on this form?
The date on the form is June 9th, 2021.
Is that when her phone came to you?
Yes, sir.
So you didn't have it from on the same day they recovered it. It was the next day.
Correct.
On this form, do you see where it says subject's name? What does subject's name mean?
It's just the name of a subject, whether it be a victim, a witness, a suspect, anything else that would be provided by the investigator for it.
And here where it says subject name unknown, would you understand that to mean the subject to be the person who committed the homicide?
No, sir. Like I said, it's just a subject name. It could, we get them that are witnesses. Some are victims. Some are suspects. It's just a subject's name.
Well, down here under keywords, do you see where it says urgent request and it's ticked yes?
Yes, sir.
And then what's the reason for that request?
It says unknown suspect.
And again, given that this is a homicide, doesn't this indicate that that at this time they're saying that we don't know who committed this homicide, and there's some urgency about looking at the victim's phone?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to stick with Maggie's phone, but really quickly, I want to just quickly turn to Paul's. Show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 46. You recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is it?
It is an evidence intake form for the Computer Crime Center that's led.
Your Honor, offer Defendant's 46 in evidence.
No, sir.
It's admitted.
Lieutenant Dove, is this the intake form for Paul's phone?
I believe it to be so, yes, sir.
Which you got on August 13. I believe we had testimony on that.
Yes, sir.
Is it an urgent request?
No, sir, it's not checked, yes or no.
Is there anything written on here that indicates that the subject is unknown?
No, sir, the subject line is blank.
I'm going to turn back to Maggie's phone. Do you recognize this one?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is it?
It's an examination worksheet for mobile devices.
And this is for Maggie's phone?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer this as a plaintiff's, Mr. Murdaugh's exhibit number 43.
No, sir.
It's admitted.
This has, let's just ask this. When did you perform the full file system extraction on Maggie Murdaugh's phone?
Well, June 16th, 2021.
And that was 8 days after it was recovered, correct?
Yes, sir.
And why was there an 8-day delay?
I attempted to process it, was only able to get a partial extraction originally from the device. It would not process fully with the iOS and the model of that phone. I did do an advanced logical to get some information off for the investigators since it was an unknown suspect. Then on the 15th of June of 2021, Graykey updated the software, and then I reran it the next day with the updated software to get the full file system.
Is it fair to say that essentially there were some technical difficulties and you were unable to do it for 8 days?
It was just that at the time, Graykey did not support that model in that iOS. It was not difficulties, it just did not support it.
Okay. And during that 8-day period, would anything have been lost on the phone? We've talked a lot about how things can go pretty quickly on some of these tables. Was anything lost during that time?
Some of the location data from GPS systems, since the phone came in airplane mode, could have been overwritten.
And I think we talked before that that's in one of these SQL-like databases called Cache.
Yes, sir.
And I think we even looked at, on the Paul's phone, the timeline, there was the state's attorney pointed out some GPS locations.
Yes, sir.
Was the source of those on the timeline, that was Cache, that was the Cache SQL-like database, correct?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. So now I want to ask you if you recognize this document.
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is this?
It's a database. It's tables from a database that denote longitude, latitude, timestamps, accuracy.
And for whose phone?
It says on the top, Maggie Murdaugh's iPhone.
And this is from the Cache?
Yes, sir.
And is this actually from the same table in the Cache database as was the source in those GPS locations we were looking at on the timeline for Paul's phone?
Yes, sir. They were both cache databases.
What is the earliest entry on this?
It appears that the first entry is at June 9th, 2021 at 2:51:21 p.m.
So that's 2 days after Maggie Murdaugh was murdered.
Yes, sir.
And it took 8 days to extract her phone.
Yes, sir.
If it had been extracted in 6 days, would we have this data for the night of the murder?
It's possible. It appears it may be. Yes, sir.
That latitude and longitude of the oldest entry, do you know where that is?
No, sir. I would have to plot it to know for sure.
Would you disagree with me if I said that that's a SLED building, given that it's the date?
No, sir. I would say that most of these are probably the SLED Annex building in Columbia.
And it is. Yesterday, you were asking questions about a Faraday bag, and there was some discussion that often there's no real point if it's already in airplane mode. But you said that one difference between removing the SIM card or airplane mode and a Faraday bag is that the Faraday bag would block GPS signals. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If this phone had been placed in a Faraday bag until whatever the Reiki issues were could be resolved, would it have preserved GPS data?
It should have, as long as the Faraday bag was not defective and sealed properly, then it should have blocked the GPS.
Okay. And then we would presumably have GPS data going back to 6/7.
Yes, sir. I would imagine so in that time frame. Yes, sir.
I'm begging for support, please. Apologize, Your Honor. Almost done. I don't think I've offered this into evidence.
Which one? Was it that one?
Your Honor, I would offer this as defendant's Exhibit 45.
Is that what he was just looking at? Yeah. No objection.
Submitted without objection.
One, I guess, final question. I said something we would come back to if I can. It's one of the state's exhibits. Do you have 284 there?
Let's see. I have 283. Yes, sir. I have 284.
I'm sorry, and I said
It's okay.
the wrong number, 282. Sorry.
That's okay. I have 283. I have 290, and I have 284 up here.
Okay. Well, I'll find that one, and that will be our last question. 282. Handed you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 282.
Yes, sir.
You turn to page 16.
Yes, sir.
Do you see the text message, going to check on them, be right back?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is there anything on there indicating it was delivered around 9:31 p.m.?
It shows the time on here is recorded as June 7th, 2021 at 9:08:58 p.m.
And in the rest of the information around that text message, do you see anything?
Around this particular text message?
Yes, sir.
Just that its status is unread.
Let's see the exhibit, please. further questions, Your Honor.
You never.
Your Honor. Mr. Barber asked you about the potentiality of Alex and Maggie's phones being carried at the same time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you testified that there were no steps on Alex's phone at about the 8:55 time frame when we see steps on Maggie's phone, correct?
Correct.
Don't leave the witness.
At 8:55, and we can refer to the report again if you need to. Between 8:53 and 8:55, do you see steps on Maggie's phone?
Yes, sir. I see steps from 8:53 and ending at 8:55.
And do you see any steps after that on Maggie's phone?
No, sir, I do not.
And if you want to pick up Alex's steps report, if you don't mind, look at the exhibit number on the back real quick.
It states Exhibit 290.
And would you look at the steps, the time frame of 8:05 to 9:02 p.m. on June 7th?
Yes, sir.
And do you see any steps on Alex's phone for that entire time period?
From 8:05:35 p.m. to 8:09:52 p.m., it shows 74 steps.
And let me stop you. I think you misspoke. The start time was 8:05 and some seconds p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was the end?
The end for that one was 8:09:52 p.m.
Right. All right. And do you see any steps after that prior to 9:02 on Alex's phone?
No, sir.
And that video was recorded again at what time?
The video was recorded, the camera was started at 8:44:49 p.m.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this time, these times that Mr. Barber wrote. So this one. And this is the information that Mr. Barber wrote down while he was having you read off some of these events, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And at 8:55:04, I believe this was a screen-on event, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And if you need to look at the original report, that's fine. All right, and then at 8:54, we see another orientation change at 54:40, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then at 9:06:12, we have an orientation change that starts at 9:06:12, correct?
Let me just verify the seconds real quick. At 9:06:12, yes, sir, I see the start of an orientation change to portrait.
Okay, and 2 seconds later, what happens?
I see a call.
And from who?
It's from PA on the report, but that's Alex Murdaugh's phone number.
Ends in 1227?
Yes, sir.
And I believe Mr. Barber asked you, and I can't remember if you wrote it down. What time does the screen turn off? Or is Maggie's phone screen on during that call at 9:06:14? Let me ask you that. You can take a look at the report.
Yes, sir. I see a time ending for the screen on at 9:07:00 p.m. And it looks like the screen started and came on at 9:05:44 p.m.
Okay, so the screen comes on at 9:05, and it turns off when?
It turns off at 9:07:00 p.m.
And when was the next time Maggie's phone screen turns on?
It turns on at 9:31:44 p.m.
All right, between 9:07 And 9:31, Maggie's screen is off, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I think you testified about this, but I'm going to ask you again. If the screen is off, will a phone record a orientation change?
No, sir.
And so Mr. Barber was asking you about the phone being thrown at this 9:06:48 time frame, correct?
Yes, sir.
And ultimately, you can't tell us exactly when that phone was thrown, correct?
Correct.
With the information that you recovered from this phone, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
But if that phone had been thrown after 9:07 with the screen off, would you expect to see an orientation change?
No, sir.
If that phone had been thrown at 9:08:58, when that text from Alex comes in to going to see him, if it had been thrown in that time period, would you expect to see an orientation change?
No, sir.
All right. I think that's. All right, and let's look at Alex's steps one more time. Do you have his report with you, Andy?
Yes, sir. I do.
Could you hand it to me?
Yes, sir.
This is State's Exhibit 290. Let's look at his steps a little later tonight, real quick. And I'm going to need the Elmo, please. All right, let's look at record 26. This is something we've previously talked about, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's 283 steps between 9:02 and 9:06 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's Alex's phone, correct?
Yes, sir. It is.
All right, and record 27. What is that? What is indicated in that record, sir?
It shows that the phone recorded 195 steps starting June 7th, 2021 at 9:22:39 p.m. and ending at 9:32:14 p.m.
Okay. Okay, record 28. What does this record indicate, sir?
This record shows steps being recorded by the phone of 60 starting June 7th, 2021 at 9:35:55 p.m. and ending at 9:45:37 p.m.
Okay. So at 9:22, there's 195 steps, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at 9:35, there's 60 steps, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you've testified, we've talked about this quite a bit. You know, a step count, is that something you can 100% rely on as the exact number?
No, sir. It's not 100% accurate.
And Mr. Barber asked you about the phone will record distance as well, correct?
Yes, sir. It can record distance and show it in meters.
All right. And you've already testified that the steps is not always exactly accurate. In your opinion, the distance that's recorded by a phone from steps, is that generally accurate?
No, sir.
All right. And with the distance that the phone records, would that be, in your opinion, more or less accurate than the steps that are recorded?
The distance is recorded, I would consider to be a little less accurate than I would the steps.
All right. Because there's some variables, correct?
Yes, sir.
Such as?
There's different variables about stride length as far as when somebody's walking. Some people stride further than others. Some people, when they walk too, they'll walk faster than that, so they can cover a greater distance in a short amount of time, but they're using more steps a lot of times because they're not striding maybe as far.
Okay. But we see 195 steps at 9:22, correct?
Yes, sir.
And 60 steps at 9:35, correct?
Yes, sir.
And is 60 less or more than 195?
60's less.
And would you expect the distance traveled at 935 to be less than the distance traveled at 922?
I would have no way of knowing. Just depends on if somebody was up walking around versus sitting down. It's just hard to say.
But more steps were taken at 922, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sustained.
Just a couple more things. The defense exhibit, what number is it? The text messages exhibit. Defense exhibit 54, please.
Yes, sir. I have a
Oh, you have
copy of it up here. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Sir, would you mind bringing this section up? This is defense exhibit 54. And I believe Mr. Barber had you read this, but I want to make sure he did. And that's, looks like entry number 2 there on the, that we see up on the screen. Can you read that, please?
Yes, sir. It's June 7th, 2021. It's at 7:55:26 p.m., but this is in UTC time. So to go back minus 4 hours to set it to our time zone would be at 3:55:26 p.m.
All right, and that's 3:55 in the afternoon, correct?
Yes, sir.
Of June
That's
7th, correct?
Yes, sir. That's in the afternoon. You subtract 4.
All right, read that text, please.
It says, T.Y., I'm waiting at doctor. Alex wants me to come home.
Alex, what?
Wants me to come home. I had to leave door open at Edisto, but trust Mexicans to shut and lock for me. His dad is back in hospital. The last doctor claims no cancer, it's pneumonia. And there's some emojis, and it says Alex, but I'm not sure if that's going into the next thread or not.
Let's go to the second page of that, please. We want to make this 100% clear. Sir, can we highlight the time? Actually, go back to the first page, excuse me. All right, and just highlight for us the time on the text entry, the text that he just read, where it says 7:55:26. Can you just highlight 7:55:26, please? There you go. All right, and just want to be 100% clear about this. This is Greenwich Mean Time, correct?
Yes, sir. Or
Also known as-
UTCI.
Yes. Also you known as UTC, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is not local time.
Correct.
It's 3:55:26 p.m., correct?
Correct.
All right.
Our time zone.
All right, go to page 2, please. All right, let's read text entry number 6. What time is that in local time? It says 8:03 p.m. What is that in local time?
In local time, I would subtract 4 hours from that. It would be 4:03:14 p.m.
All right. And what does this text say again?
It says, yes, he does. He told me he was tired when he left. I hope they are treat Mr. Randolph at least to make him comfortable.
Okay. Let's go now to entry number 8. And again, that's 8:06:43 Universal Time. What is that? Eastern Time?
It would be subtracting 4 hours. It would be at 4:06:43 p.m.
What does that text message say?
It says, I am scared for him and Alex and all of us.
All right. It says him. We just read the text at number 6. From the context of this message, who do you think him refers to?
I believe it refers to his father, Mr. Randolph.
But it says she is scared for Mr. Randolph and who?
And Alex and all of us.
Mr. Barber asked you about that camera that came on Maggie's phone, and I believe it was around 8:54 or 8:55. And you can, if you have that report, if you need to look it up real quick, you can.
Yes, sir, I have it. Do you need to know what exhibit number it is?
Yeah, if you want to read it.
It states exhibit 283.
So that camera that came on, can you look at the exact time again at 8? I think it's 8:54 time frame.
Yes, sir. It shows an end time of 8:54:35 p.m.
What was the start time?
It was 8:54:34 p.m.
So that camera was accessed for how long?
1 second.
And I know you testified that from the data you have, you can't say with 100% certainty how that camera was activated, correct?
Correct. It's just showing as an application usage. It could have been that the phone thought it saw something and the camera was activated. It could have been running in the background. For 1 second, it doesn't look like somebody might have touched it to cut it on.
Okay. If it had been someone actually trying to turn on the camera app, would a second of one, let me rephrase that. In your experience and expertise, you've reviewed phone data that shows cameras being turned on that by persons at certain times, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you see a camera activated to be used as a camera, i.e. to take a picture or to take a video, how long is that camera app on generally?
It's usually several seconds to a minute because the camera has to come into focus of the picture it's going to take.
And if a camera app is on for only 1 second, in your opinion, what does that lead you to believe?
Where it's located in the application usage log, and for 1 second, to me, it would indicate that the phone's camera was possibly looking to see if it recognized a face or recognized something that was running in the background.
Nothing further for this witness.
Further.
Yes, Your Honor. Very, very quickly. On this camera usage, are you familiar with something on the iPhone called Springboard?
Yes, sir.
What is Springboard?
It's usually things that are set that once you touch them, it'll bring it up to focus as far as with applications of different things.
If the metadata, and I try to say this in an understandable fashion, but if Knowledge C had data about that camera app that indicated the usage came from Springboard lock screen, would that tell you anything about how the camera was activated?
If it showed it was coming from the lock screen Springboard, it would mean that on your iPhone, if you look at it, you have at the bottom right corner a little camera there, that you would be hitting that from there.
Okay. Have you checked to see if that metadata is the Knowledge C for this camera event?
No, sir, I didn't review the Springboard metadata.
So, and we saw with the easels up, there's kind of a little flurry of activity screen on and off orientation changes happening right around when this camera usage happened. And if it were coming from the lock screen, if we had some metadata that would show that, which we may well have, could it be that she was trying to take a picture of someone, say a perpetrator?
If for 1 second, it would be to start and stop in 1 second. I would imagine that would be difficult, but could somebody accidentally activate their camera and then shut it off? Yes, sir, that is possible.
And if the perpetrator or perpetrators responded by shooting at her, could that explain why it went off in 1 second and there were a bunch of orientation changes very shortly thereafter?
I would think if somebody went and activated their camera and then they're in fear, they wouldn't think to just shut off the camera.
Right. But if they had their finger on the phone, it could happen, right?
There's a lot of possibilities
Yeah.
could happen, not knowing how a person reacts.
Does the camera app ever store a snapshot of the app? In other words, a screenshot that might have an image, even if you didn't take a picture?
I haven't seen that with the camera stuff. I've seen snapshots be captured of apps running in the background.
But have you looked through the snapshots in this time frame? All the ones on the phone, are they all there?
The ones I looked at, I did look at one. The last one from my recollection was a Facebook that was open in the background.
No further questions.
You may step down. You may step down, and ladies and gentlemen, we will break until for an hour and 15 minutes, around 2:35.
too bad.